Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. So welcome to our session today. We will talk how we battled 3 different threat actors in one single environment, okay? So let us start. I'm Amnon Kushnir. As the wonderful Karen introduced us, I'm the director for the incident response insignia.
Hi, my name is Oren Biderman. I'm a red team turned blue. I'm a foodie and a coffee addict. I'm also an incident response team leader at Signia. And Signia is a consulting firm specializing in helping organizations that have experienced security breaches. Our story begins when a client contacted us and requested our assistance with responding to a financial extortion attack. Now, when we pick up the phone and went on the call, it seems like a very regular activity, extortion attack. We encounter many of those throughout the year. But at this point, little did we know that we are in for a roller coaster ride. What started as a simple IR turned out to be a battle against 3 very capable and very persistent threat actors. But let's start at the beginning, okay? With threat actor alpha. Threat actor alpha is a financially motivated threat actor. They are the kings of cloud-based attacks. And this client was working with different cloud vendors. They had a single identity federation that ruled them all. And the threat actor managed to compromise a highly privileged administrative account. And using that user, they connected to the cloud environment and compromised it. Now, this threat actor was very creative. They knew how to bypass multi-factor authentication. They knew how to bypass conditional access rules. And they executed almost every attack in the playbook on their cloud environment. In addition to these attacks, they also searched for IT-related documents. And this is how they found out how to install and operate the organizational VPN solution. And they used the administrative account to move to the on-premise environment and also compromise that environment. One of the novel techniques that they leveraged was to deploy an EDR solution as their CNC mechanism. Now, put yourself in our shoes. We are incident responders. We came to investigate a compromised host, and we see that there is an EDR solution installed. Initially, we were very happy, right? We have telemetry, we have data, we can now investigate. So we went to the client and we say, hey, can we please get access to the EDR console? And the client says, I'm not familiar with this solution. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, so we dig a little deeper, start to investigate, and then we discover that the threat actor was the one who deployed the EDR solution, and they leveraged the tool's ability to execute commands on the machine in order to have remote access into the environment. So overall, the attack of threat actor alpha was very impressive, but we wanted to kick them out of the environment, right? So we started working on a remediation plan. We basically gather all the IOCs on the TTPs and give recommendation to the client how to clean the environment. And as part of the remediation plan, we also implemented some post-breach monitoring. The reason we do that is that we know that threat actors will respond to the eradication efforts. Sometimes they will try to re-enter the environment, sometimes they will leverage dormant persistency mechanism, but they will respond, and you want to be prepared, and you want to have monitoring in place. And when we monitor, it's easy to monitor for the IOCs, right? It's easy to block and monitor IP and hash value, but it's also easy for capable threat actors to just purchase a new IP address. So we always want to monitor for TTPs, and we also monitor for the implementation of the eradication plan. Why? We want to monitor the blue team of the organization because we learned that in large and complex environments, one IT team can implement a rule in the firewall, and a different team will revoke that rule because they are used to how things worked before. It was easier to connect to the network. So we also monitor the blue team. And here in our story, we completed the remediation, we completed the post-breach monitoring, and now we just sit and wait.
Now, several days later, we see a very suspicious activity when the user, the high-privileged user that Oren just mentioned, was re-enabled, okay? We contact the client and then ask them, hey guys, are you familiar with this activity? They immediately say no, and we understand here that we might see threat actor alpha returns to being operational. Now it's true, it was the same high privilege user, but with several differences. The activity was originated from a different server that was correlated with the known scope of compromise of threat actor alpha. Deep dive investigation of this server revealed an IIS module installed on the server, but it serves only one specific single web page, which is a China Chopper web shell. Now this is another something that we did not correlate with threat actor alpha at all. Deep dive investigation of the IIS access logs on the server revealed that the access to the China Chopper web shell dated years back. This leads us to the imminent conclusion that we had just identified a new threat actor, a live campaign of a new APT inside the same network. Let's talk about threat actor beta. Threat actor beta is one of the China Nexus state-sponsored threat actor with the motivation of espionage, okay? Different than threat actor alpha. Now, they had prolonged operation, as I mentioned, several years within the same environment, and the main TTPs of this threat actor was web shells. Web shells, web shells, web shells, all kind of variants of China Chopper web shells, either the classic one, either one with some kind of asymmetric encryption, and even others that just out there. So basically, the threat actor have utilized the web shells not only as the access vector from external, but also for lateral movement and remote code execution in the internal environment. They deployed it remotely via SMB and then accessed it in order to execute code remotely via some kind of web shell tunneling mechanism. Very interesting. Now, another interesting fact about this threat actor is that they operated from home routers, meaning that you cannot just simply block the IP address of the threat actor, since there might be a legitimate activity originating from this IP address. So before proceed, let's take one step back and understand what led us to reveal this specific threat actor. This is something that we called a remediation domino, okay? When we implemented a comprehensive remediation plan in a large IT network, then it actually impacts the network, okay? It impacts the day-to-day operation, and it can also impact the threat actor operation as well. Now, for threat actors that are operating for a long period of time in the network, they know that the network will change. They not necessarily know why, but they need to adapt. Now, this is something we called a golden time frame, when we implement a very comprehensive remediation plan and enhancing the monitor. In this specific golden time frame, we are able to detect abnormal activity, which lead us to detect this specific threat actor, okay? They try to resume their operation by just re-enabling the account and the access they had, which is a bit blunt operation, but we were able to identify it, detect it, and understand what behind of this activity. Now, it's true that changes creates opportunities, okay? The IT changes creates opportunities, but for both sides. For threat actors, if we are doing an incorrect remediation, then we might connect, for example, two previously segmented network and create a new lateral movement path for the threat actor. This time, fortunately, the opportunities was for us, the blue team, in order to detect them. Now, after that we understood that there is a live threat actor in the network, what do? We investigate it, okay? But what is the problem or the challenge with investigating an APT is that they are OPSEC aware. They will tamper logs, they will delete their evidence, they will disable installed security mechanisms, and they will try to do everything in order to evade detection. They want to operate, of course. So what's the proposed solution to deal with that is what we call stealth monitoring. Stealth monitoring actually means that we will implement such kind of a monitoring mechanism that will be out of the sight of the threat actor. One example for that is to implement what we call the port mirroring, okay? We know that server A is compromised, server B is compromised, the threat actor operates between A and B. we will go to the network level, implement this kind of port mirroring into a server which is out of band, okay? Not even a domain join, nothing. We only the ones that knows about the server, and then monitor there. When we will monitor then we can continue to understand what the threat actor try to achieve.
Okay, so let's go back to the investigation. The monitoring that we implemented helped us to identify another compromised host. It was compromised by threat actor beta. It has its China Chopper web shell. But when we investigated the host, we managed to identify another tool, a new tool, ShadowPad. Now, ShadowPad is not one of the tools that were leveraged by threat actor beta. And when we tried to investigate how ShadowPad got to this host, we identified that it was during an RDP session. Again, not a TTP of threat actor beta that likes to deploy web shells from web shells. And the deployment of ShadowPad was not on the same time frame as the deployment of the web shell, and this is how we came to the conclusion that we have a new threat actor in the network, the third live campaign within the same client environment. Let me introduce you this threat actor. Signia tracks them as Velvet Ant. They are a Chinese APT group, specializes in espionage. They maintain the prolonged operation in the network. They were in the network for more than 3 years. Now, Velvet Ant are very creative. They are the kings of DLL sideloading. They can load DLLs in ways that nobody can, really. And they are very evasive. It means that they disable security tools. They tamper with the log. They do time stomping. They even try to tamper with our monitoring. And some of the tools that they leveraged during the campaign were plugins and ShadowPad. Both are remote access Trojans that are characteristic of Chinese APT groups. They also use two-way proxy to tunnel their activity within the network, and WMI exec in order to execute tools remotely. So we investigated Velvet Ant. It was very impressive, but we want to kick them out, right? So how can we eradicate an APT? Usually, we take the kill switch approach. Kill switch means that we have a coordinated remediation. We have a single event. It's a very big event. We prepare for it for weeks. We need collaboration from multiple teams. It's the IT, network, security, application owners. We bring all teams on site. Some of them are in data centers and with the DRP sites. Usually, you conduct the kill switch off hours or during the weekends, off hours during the weekends, and it's a very big event. The reason we implement kill switch is that if you try to clean host by host when you're dealing with an APT, they will respond, okay? It's easy for an APT group to change their TTPs in the middle of the operation. It's easy for them to implement hidden backdoors, and we don't want that to happen, so we need to clean everything in a single day. We need to have a list of all the compromised hosts, all the tools, all the persistency mechanism, and just clean them. And when we do that, we also implement post-kill switch monitoring, so we'll be able to identify all the re-entry attempts, and if there is some sort of backdoor that we missed during the investigation, we'll see it in the monitoring. So we clean the network. Velvet Ant are out. The network is clean, the monitoring is in place, and now we just sit and wait. Several days after the successful kill switch, we start seeing alerts being triggered again. We see that someone is deploying plugins in the network. And it was very strange because we think, okay, everything was clean, what's going on? So we went to investigate the host, we went to plugins, pulled the configuration information, and identified an internal C2 instead of the external IP that was blocked. And we tried to identify which IP, triage the host, and we came to a legacy server. Now, this client has an entire segment of legacy hosts. None of them were monitored by the organization EDR solution because it was an unsupported operating system. Nobody deployed additional visibility, so they had a segment that was not monitored, and the threat actor was quick to identify that. We went to investigate that legacy system, and it was also infected with plugins. When we pulled the configuration file, there was no CNC configured. Now, this is really strange because plugins is a remote access tool. So how can a threat actor connect to a remote access tool that doesn't have a CNC configured? We dug a little deeper, we did some memory forensic analysis, and we identified another internal IP address. This IP address belonged to an F5 big IP device. Now, F5 big IP is a firewall/load balancer. Here it functioned mainly as a load balancer. Now, let me take you through how the attack chain worked. So we have the F5 load balancer. It was compromised, running 4 different malware families on it. We have the external CNC server. It's the same IP that we blocked in other locations within the network. One of the tools that was running on the load balancer was a tool that we track as Velvet Sting. Velvet Sting would pull the CNC server once an hour, looking for commands to execute. When the threat actor wanted to regain access to the environment, they would connect to the CNC and leave there a command to be executed. That command allowed the threat actor to connect over an SSH tunnel to the load balancer. From the load balancer, the threat actor would move to the legacy server and connect to the plugin instance that was deployed on it. And from that plugin instance, they also compromised additional hosts and deployed additional plugins. Now, this is the point in the story that our alerts started to trigger because the legacy server is not monitored, but other sections in the network were monitored, and we were able to identify this lateral movement attempt. And of course, that each new plugins deployment connected back to the legacy server as its internal C2. So now we updated Velvetant's ID card. It also includes now working from network devices. It includes Velvet Sting and VelvetTap. VelvetTap is a tool to perform network tapping on the management interface of the F5 device. So 3 threat actors in a single environment, all of them clean, and now you probably think, yay, the story is over, we can go to eat lunch. No.
So the post-kill switch monitoring allowed us to understand how persistent these APTs are, and let's do a side-by-side comparison of threat actor beta persistency and Velvetant's persistency. Let's start with threat actor beta. Threat actor beta, post-kill switch, tried to access the same web shell from the same C2. It was, of course, failed since the web shell was deleted and detected by our monitoring. Now, then they tried to change the C2 and access the same web shell. In that phase, they still didn't really understand what happened. The access was failed since the web shell was deleted and detected by us. Afterwards, they tried to do another thing to exploit using some kind of a deserialization attack and deploy what we called a ghost web shell, okay? A memory residing web shell. And this was success for the threat actor. However, it was detected. Why? Because we monitored for the TTP. Immediately after successfully deploying the ghost web shell, they tried to create processes on the new compromised server. On this specific TTP, we have monitored for the child processes that are being spawned from web server processes.
Cool. Now let's talk about Velvetant. So while threat actor beta APT persistency was in its attempts to regain access to the environment, Velvetant was very persistent within the same environment. They attempted to deploy tools pointing to the same CNC server. That CNC was blocked in the security stack, so the attempts failed and we had monitoring. Then they tried to deploy tools using the same name with different hash values. Now, there is an issue with EDRs. They are very good with blocking by hash. They are not good with blocking by names. So the deployment attempt was successful, but we had alternate monitoring in place. We were able to identify this activity and we responded quickly. Another attempt is threat actor Velvetant basically used in-packet to deploy tools. And since in-packet is an open source tool, it's just a bunch of Python scripts, it's easy to modify them. And once the threat actor modified them, they were able to use them and move laterally within the network. Again, we had alerts in place. Our alerting was based on suspicious service creation in the network, so it was agnostic to the change in code, and we were able to quickly respond to the activity.
Now, it's very interesting to see that both threat actors were actually detected by the TTP-based alert that we implemented in the post-kill switch phase. So let us go into the key takeaways for this session. Let's start with the first one, or first two, which are that lucrative targets or large corporate networks might be hosting several threat actors working in parallel. Each threat actor might have a different motivation. Some can be the extortion, some can be the espionage, so on and so forth. And the specific motivation of a threat actor might impact their persistency, which means that for an extortion attack, there will be a simple calculation of cost to effort, and if the operation is starting to become not beneficial, then they might stop or halt the operation until further decision, just like a normal business, right? But for espionage, the need for intelligence will probably always be there. So they probably will be even more persistent. Now, next takeaway is that the response that we will do for the APT will draw a response from the APT, okay? Now, this is very crucial here to understand the post-kill switch monitoring. This was the one that assisted in order to understand what kind of a response there will be. Now, for the Chinese espionage threat actor, the response was try to re-enter the network, try to change their lateral movement path within the network. But differently than that, for Iranian threat actors, we do see that if they feel that their operation is compromised and they are being discovered, they might shift their operation into some kind of a disruption attack, okay? To hide their tracks and to do whatever they can with the access they had for even for a prolonged time in the network. So this is something to take into an account when preparing some kind of a response to a threat actor, to consider what can be done from their behalf. Last but not least is the post-breach monitoring and visibility enhancement, okay? Without implementing some kind of additional visibility mechanisms to allow us to understand better what the threat actor do and to monitor their TTPs in the most efficient way, we probably will not even understood that they just resume their operation or that they are trying to re-enter the network. So this is super critical when responding to such threat actors, to implement the right remediation measures and the visibility enhancement in order to support this monitoring phase. Now, with that being said, stay tuned for part 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.